You know, there are moments in history that change everything. And for America, one of the biggest, most tragic was the Civil War. It was literally a war that pitted brother against brother, a conflict that almost destroyed the entire country from within. So today, we're going to dive into this pivotal moment.
I mean, just think about that for a second. America went to war with itself. It's almost unimaginable, right? For 4 long, brutal years, from 1861 all the way to 1865, this wasn't some foreign enemy. This was neighbor against neighbor, family against family. It was a conflict that didn't just tear the nation apart, it would completely redefine what America was.
So, the big question is, how? How did things get so bad? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down. We're going to look at the deep, deep roots of this conflict. We'll get to know the generals who are calling the shots on both sides, and we'll focus in on Abraham Lincoln's one single-minded mission through it all, saving the Union. So, let's start at the beginning on that long road to war.
All right, Section 1, the path to war. You see, this whole thing didn't just happen overnight. Not at all. It was more like a slow burn, a pressure cooker building up for decades, fueled by these huge disagreements that were literally splitting the country right down the middle.
And if you boil it all down, you can really point to 4 main root causes. You've got slavery, the debate over states' rights, massive economic differences, and finally, secession. These weren't separate issues. They were all tangled up together, creating this perfect storm.
Now look, while all those 4 things mattered, let's be really clear about one thing. Slavery was the big one. It was the central, unavoidable conflict. I mean, the entire Southern way of life, its economy, its culture, it was all built on the backs of enslaved people. Meanwhile, up north, things were industrializing, and a growing number of people saw slavery not just as wrong, but as a moral stain on the nation that had to be stopped from spread. And this table, wow, it just lays it all out, doesn't it? You're basically looking at 2 completely different Americas sharing one border. In the North, the Union, you have an industrial economy, free labor, and a belief in a strong central government. But in the South, the Confederacy, it's all about an agrarian economy, a total reliance on enslaved labor, and a fierce defense of states' rights. I mean, you can see why they called it a clash of civilizations. They were on 2 totally different paths.
So what was the final straw? The breaking point? It all came down to one event, the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860. For the Southern states, this was it. They saw Lincoln, who wanted to stop the spread of slavery, as an existential threat, and their response was immediate. They started to secede, to literally leave the United States. They formed their own country, the Confederate States of America. And at that point, well, there was no turning back. War was coming.
Okay, so the country is officially split. The talking is over. Now the conflict shifts to the battlefield. Let's get into the generals and the grand strategies, the clash of the armies.
Let's meet some of the key players. For the Union, you've got Ulysses S. Grant. They called him the Bulldog for a reason. He just would not let go. Then on the Confederate side, you have the legendary Robert E. Lee, this master strategist that everybody respected. And his right-hand man, Stonewall Jackson, an absolutely ferocious attacker. These guys weren't just names in a textbook. They were giants of their time, and their personalities totally shaped how their armies.
And you guessed it, their game plans were polar opposites. The Union's plan was all offense. They had a strategy designed to go in and actively squeeze the life out of the Confederacy. The South, their plan was basically to play defense, to hang on, fight a war of attrition, and just hope they could wear the North down until they gave up and went home.
That Union strategy had one of the coolest names in military history, the Anaconda Plan. And the name tells you everything you need to know. The goal was to be like a giant snake, to wrap the Union Navy and Army around the entire Confederacy, block all its ports, control its rivers, and just squeeze until the rebellion was choked out.
So how do you do that? It broke down into 3 simple, brutal steps. Step 1, blockade all the southern ports. No supplies in, no cotton out. Step 2, take control of the mighty Mississippi River, which would literally cut the Confederacy in half. And step 3, just use your overwhelming advantage in men and materials to grind down the Southern armies in the field. It was a slow but powerful plan.
But okay, behind all the military strategy, there was a guiding light for the Union, a North Star, if you will. And that was Abraham Lincoln's single defining goal.
And here it is in his own words. My paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union. It's so direct, so clear. Now, of course, ending slavery would become a massive, crucial part of the war,
But at the very beginning, Lincoln's #1 non-negotiable goal was just that: keep the country in one piece.
And saving the Union was about something way bigger than just territory. It was about proving a point. First, that the United States was one nation, indivisible. Second, that you can't just quit. States couldn't just pack up their bags and leave whenever they lost an election. And maybe most importantly, it was about preserving this grand experiment in democracy. If America failed, what would that say about the idea of a government of the people, by the people, for the people?
All right, let's move to the end of the war. After 4 long, devastating years, the fighting stopped. But the country that was left behind, well, it was deeply scarred, and it was also changed forever.
The human cost it's just staggering. Roughly 620,000 American lives were lost. To put that in perspective, that's more casualties than in every other American war combined. It's a number that's so big, it's hard to even wrap your head around the sheer scale of the loss.
But through all that bloodshed, Lincoln's goal was achieved. The Union was preserved. The country stayed together. But it wasn't the same country anymore, not even close. The nation that came out of the fire was fundamentally and forever changed.
And Lincoln himself captured this transformation perfectly at Gettysburg. He talked about a new birth of freedom. Think about that. The war wasn't just about saving what was, it was about creating something new. It ended slavery and forced America to look in the mirror and ask what those words, "all men are created equal," really meant.
So, yeah, the Civil War answered one huge question. Could the United States survive? The answer was yes. But it left us with an even bigger one that we're still grappling with today. What does that new birth of freedom really look like? What does that freedom mean for us, right here, right now? That's the question the Civil War left for every generation to answer.